palm tree in the front, and I'm so happy.
Oh, that's great.
It like made my day. They beheaded it yesterday, so it was like this stump, and he was pretty bored, so he just chainsawed it.
Oh.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, but I have no social media skills, so I swear I took a video and I shared it, and it didn't happen.
It didn't go. Was it actually a photo? Were you actually taking a photo?
No, it was like Instagram Live, which I thought I've done before.
I have never done Instagram Live.
I mean, like story.
Never done.
Oh, I see. Okay, I do that a lot.
Yeah, that.
Got it. Got it. Oh, Steve Hewitt's here. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Nancy. And Laura. Yay! This makes me so happy.
How can you see that? I can't see that. Where do you see that?
Yeah, Maggie, how do you see that?
So I went to guys, we're all gonna have a Zoom lesson. Get excited. At the bottom, there's participants.
Okay, wait. We went over this yesterday. Remember the participants in the chat and the thing, the stuff right down here?
Oh, attendees.
Yeah.
What's up, Deb? Sweet.
Love it.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna exit. I'll be too distracted saying hi to people.
Hi, Columbus, Ohio.
Well, say hello to everybody, then it'll take your mind off what we're actually meant to be doing, and then we'll have even more fun.
Okay. All right.
Is the Facebook stream working?
The Facebook stream is working. We are on.
Yeah. Oh, I see you live on Facebook.
People here. Look at that.
Jeez, Maggie, you're so like.
I know it's.
What just happened to my lighting?
Oh, you were already dancing.
I know. I do have a song queued up just in case.
Because I didn't know what song we should do.
Just in case. We'll see.
Right on. All right, we'll give it a minute or two because we got lots of people joining us right now. So we'll give them a minute to get on and get comfortable, hopefully pour themselves something.
Oh, excuse me.
Maggie?
No. I grabbed two. I grabbed a screw cap because easy access, and then I grabbed a 2011 Syrah NBD.
Oh, I want that like 15 Movet that you guys have with your roulette. The sun worshiper.
Really fun.
I want that.
We've run out of a couple things, but we're making some fun swaps. That's the beauty of roulette, right? It's like, we'll see what you get. Hi, David.
Arizona's hot today. It's 100 degrees in Phoenix right now.
Oh, it's too hot. I'm gonna go ahead and say 100 is too many degrees.
It is right now.
She lives in Paso Robles.
It's nice here today.
It is. Please breathe.
It's beautiful. It's nice wind.
Glenn, it's so beautiful. I truly thought it was a Zoom background.
Yeah. No, this is Alex's house.
My party here, but I see the Hewitts are on here again, so they've joined us for just about every session. So hi again, thanks for coming.
Love it.
Right on.
Love it.
And then we'll see.
Well, the Book of Vineyard says.
Oh, I have to change my name.
Oh, Steve, it's nice there. I also wish you were in Paso. Someday, we'll be here. Whenever. Maybe it's worth a road trip. You know, Ohio's not that far to drive. Just skip the plane. Drive out to Paso.
You can drive.
That's how you socially distance.
Yeah, just bring people.
I remember that time that we did that show in Phoenix, and Maggie, you decided to drive it.
I drove. Well, I was visiting my grandma. It was a whole thing.
Yeah. You ended up taking a few things for us too, which was awesome.
I did. It worked out great. And I also remember there was a break at some point in the tasting, and I just really wanted a Chipotle burrito. And as it turns out, Phoenix, there's traffic there. And so I was late coming back, and Chris, you gave me the stink eye. To be fair, I deserved it.
Wait, have you had the queso? I'm just curious if it's good.
I haven't had it. No, the queso blanco.
Yeah, I'm gonna make my own tonight, but I was thinking if I'm lazy, maybe.
Might socially distance that queso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saturday, I'll save you some.
Oh, yes. Okay. Ready.
All right, we're looking good here. We're about 5 after, and it sounds like we might have some good numbers over there of people tuning in on Facebook Live. Yes, we've got about 50 or so people over there. Looks like we're up to about 12 over here, maybe a few more coming on. So we'll kick it off. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Chris. I'm with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance, pasowine.com. And we're doing another Zoom Hangout with a few personalities from our region. We've got Leann from L'Aventure. Hello, Leann.
Hi.
Glenn Mitton from Booker. Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
Maggie from Alta, Colina. Thank you
Hi.
for today. Our topic today is about the heightened guest experience. And so these three brands, they go a little extra mile when hosting visitors, when hosting tasters to their places. They do a little bit extra. They kind of spend a little bit more time with the consumer or the customer, because as we all know, this is a relationship-based business that we have with all of you. When you come here, I mean, we're basically welcoming you into our homes, into our places of business, but into where we spend the majority of our time. And I did want to note too that because last episode we had a lot of questions about when are you opening and all of that, and how close are we? It's getting a little closer, and I'll tell you right now, in this post-COVID world that we're going to be in here pretty soon, that this type of experience, this high touch without touching kind of experience.
Important distinction.
Yeah, we're not going to touch you, we promise. These seated tastings or these kind of individual tastings is probably going to be the new norm. And so it's going to be almost for everybody at every place. It's not really going to be that bellying up to the bar kind of experience. Of course, there's going to be some parameters in place, and those things are all getting fleshed out right now. They're literally getting edited and approved, and with County Health and Wine Institute and so many agencies and the like. And so we're going to get there. But first, these guys have been doing it for a little while. Part of my inspiration for this topic was because I took some journalists to Maggie's once, and we went to this deck out in the Vineyard. And, I thought we were doing something totally special for my journalists. And as it turns out, you guys do this for customers coming to visit you.
We've only done it the once, Chris. No, it is. No, it's something that's available. We've been doing it for probably 3 years. But what's really nice about it is it's always private. It's usually hosted by me or my dad. And it's always a small group. And you're literally in the vineyard. If we could do that with everyone, we would. And so something that I guess I could call it a silver lining is really just everyone is going to get that one-on-one experience. Hopefully we'll get to host some people on the deck, but even for folks who just join us in whatever the tasting room looks like, we're going to get to make everything super special for every single guest, which is what we really want.
Why did you design this deck tasting? What inspired you to do this thing?
My dad and his crossword puzzle habit, honestly. Our vineyard is incredibly beautiful. And sometimes it feels like a challenge, but the way our Alta Colina vineyard is situated is 130 acres. So if this box is the vineyard, imagine the little green lines around me are the property lines. The tasting room is, where am I? Here. And the vineyard is here. And so if you're in the tasting room, you can't see the vineyard, but really that's where all the action happens. And my dad, for years, he's an avid crossword puzzle man. He does the New York Times every day in pen because he's a show-off. And we had this beautiful tree underneath, sort of surrounded by vines, and he stuck a chair out there. And then eventually he added a bench because sometimes my mom would join him. And then eventually he thought, oh, maybe other people would like this. And so we started just sort of offering it up. And over years, it became something people sort of got to know and were interested in doing. And we decided, you know what, let's make this a real place. So we built this beautiful deck. I have a photo if
share it, yeah.
Your game. So it's situated, the setting is insanely pretty. And let me do my share screen. Did it work?
Mm-hmm. I don't see it.
There we
There
go.
You-
So this is a couple 100-year-old oak tree, and you can see there's vines surrounding this 360 degrees, and then we have this just standalone deck out in the middle of nowhere. There's no power, there's nothing there. It's literally just us, you, a bottle of wine, and we get to talk about where the wines are really made, which is in the vineyard. And even for people who don't really care about viticulture, it is gorgeous.
Haven't you done yoga?
Yes, we have. Yeah, a friend of mine's a yoga teacher. We do that occasionally. And we have a little campground on the vineyard. And sometimes our trailer, like our camper guests, will schedule yoga for them. It's, you know, there's room. We could probably host 6 people, keep the distance.
Mhm.
Totally game. We'll see you there.
Do you see, as far as when people are, you know, experiencing that deck tasting, how does that translate maybe even into, I mean, I hate to say it, but guest loyalty? Like, you got people just like, oh, now they just absolutely love you?
We do. And a lot of it, the setting helps. It's just so beautiful. But really what we love the most about it is we set aside 2 hours for these tastings. And so
Wow.
it's me and you. And we just get to kick it in this beautiful place, drink some wine, really dive into the growing side. For folks who are less interested in that, we can just hang out and have a good time. We've never had a bad deck tasting because it's beautiful. There's just no way you can have a bad time. And so we really forge connections that are extra special. And again, if we could somehow share the wines with everyone that way, we would. So one of our goals in the tasting room is to give everyone that level of experience and sort of some version of a vineyard experience, even when we're in a metal building at the other end of the property. So that people piece is what really, really makes it. And then having it be beautiful is a bonus.
I think the unique thing about when you're coming to Paso Wine Country, which we're, you know, hoping to extend that a little bit through these things, but you get to experience that personality of our region. The fact that your dad, you are the ones that are out there getting to know your guests and sharing your love, your land, and where the wines come from, I think just makes it absolutely so special. And that's what we get to do here. I mean, I'm thinking also L'Aventure, and the fact that you're able to then bring people not only into these caves to have some really unique experience, but there is this wall in your caves that is absolutely the coolest thing ever.
It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it
Exposed
really is.
limestone.
That's right. It's basically what makes this wine is this great big limestone wall. That's what, 20, how many feet under the ground is that?
So you're 50 feet below the Mourvèdre. And I think the best part is we talk about limestone and we talk about limestone. We have core samples that a team from Cal Poly took. Just doesn't do justice, you know? People assume that it's more like topsoil where it's, you know, loose and it's broken down. And when you show them a rock wall, literally, I think it's the best way to educate without overstepping, you know, people's quantum of knowledge. You know, if you don't know that much about wine, I'll just show you, you know, we don't have to use terms that lose our audience. And I think educating in that way, wine can be really intimidating. I mean, when Stefan hired me, I knew nothing. And I will tell you, I was petrified. You know, I tried to turn down that job. Luckily, he wouldn't let me. But it's a nice way to just kind of show them without words that might lose them. And so it's really beautiful. People can touch it. They can feel the moisture that's retained in the limestone. And I think it's just, I mean, awesome. It's just really awesome for them to see. Now, Justin Smith has a protruding rock of limestone that I'm very envious of, but we just didn't have that.
Yours is just fine, Leann.
Thanks.
It is truly like anytime any of my friends are in Paso, I am also a culprit of going to, like, there are places that I love sharing, but one of the reasons is exactly what you're saying of being able, there's no reason why we should all just wake up one day and through osmosis know stuff about wine. Like, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. And wine for so long has been this really intimidating, overwrought, sort of bougie thing. And my favorite thing about Paso is everyone on this screen and the entire community, because it's about being able to answer the questions for folks who are interested in a way that makes sense, but it's about the people and sharing, and like wine is to bring people together, not to make you feel dumb and not sophisticated. And I think for the most part, Paso is really good at that.
Yeah, I think the three of you do a great job with that when you're having and entertaining guests at your places, because you do have this kind of easy way about you to educate people on wine without being intimidating by any means. And I think that's what makes us as Paso unique, because it's not just the three of you, but it's everybody else, to be honest, that's here.
Yeah.
I've never heard of, by the way, rock envy before. That was
Well, you heard it here. I have it.
That could be a
Chisel
hashtag.
off a little piece of a time every time I go in there, and it'll get smaller
This
and
will no
smaller
longer
and smaller.
protrude.
Sorry, Justin, but I want it.
well. I want to know. I want to see what rock envy might be like once Booker is done with what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
Glenn, talk about that.
We obviously at Booker, we've always had the small tasting room, and it's been appointment only. And so when people come to experience a tasting at Booker, they're getting that almost that one-to-one experience. And so that's always been sort of set in place. But about a year and a half ago, well, close to 2 years now, started preparing the caves, which are behind the tasting room. And those who have visited in the last year have at different stages seen the development of the caves. So the barrel storage part is finished. They're doing some little bits and pieces in there. So it's, and we do have a live wall. So Leann, you just need to literally walk, because you're only about, I could almost wave to you there.
Yeah, I know. You're over there. What's up?
Yeah, I'm waving to you. Come and check out our live wall, but the live wall is in a part of the caves which they're still working on, but it's about 11,000 square feet, just over 11,000 square feet. And so mostly for barrel storage. So that part is already completed.
You have some pictures, right?
Oh, I do, yeah. Yeah, let's share.
Let's see. I missed it earlier.
Yes, I practiced. Here's one I made earlier. Okay, so here's some photos. So that's a picture of the caves right now. The walls are very smooth. It's almost like this beautiful soft Venetian plaster. The floors are concrete, and so there we have some barrels in there. That's at the very back, looking across three back caves. Here we have a artist's rendition of what the tasting room. So if you look at the bottom there, you can see there's an entrance there, and above it is the new tasting room. And at the very back, on the right-hand side, will be a little private area. Here is early on the outline of where we're at. We're a little bit beyond that. Actually, if you go on our Instagram page, we have one of those little links called New Space, and Lauren has been once a month. She's updating the development of that, and then on the Booker Instagram page, it's called Construction, and we have some photos there. This is another view, so that you can see right through there. It's almost like a, I forget what you call that. Well, the word is over here, but you can see right through it. And you can see the Sunderland in the background. The breezeway, that's it. It's like an internal breezeway, but there'll be windows coming in the front. Next up we have, so that's from the front, that's from the road, just sort of before you actually get driving, looking up. So you have the concrete reinforced wall, and then that's going into the front cave. You can see the back there. I think I have one more. This is looking kind of over towards Colina. That area there is going to be like a private area. That's a picture in the middle of the tasting room. So the tasting bar will be on the side there. That's what I've got. So what we're doing is we're opening up the ability to offer elevated experiences, more experiences. So we'll have a cave to do tours. We're going to have the new tasting room. We're going to have a private area. There'll be an elevator that goes from the tasting room down into the caves, into this hospitality area where we'll have this little room.
Wow. Elevator envy now, maybe?
I mean, I don't have that yet. I haven't seen it.
Well, come over.
Yeah.
You can see
Well,
it.
you know, I think it was 2 years ago that Eric came after hours sniffing around and he was like, Stefan set the bar too high, so I'm doing a cave. And I'm like, dude, you have a basketball court. Like, I got court envy, I got rock envy, but maybe elevator, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I remember going to I forget if it was, I think it was a PRWCA seminar that was held out at Ancient Peaks about a year ago, and one of the main, I guess this company, I think it was Silicon Valley Bank, had done a lot of research, and a lot of the feedback they'd gotten was that people are definitely looking for that elevated experience. The number of wineries people are visiting averages 3 instead of 6. And they're all looking they want to spend more time somewhere and have an elevated experience. Now, an elevated experience doesn't mean you have to have a more educated experience, because you have to be careful, as you mentioned earlier, where you pitch the tasting. If you have a group and you've got some novices, some sort of fairly experienced, or some real winos, you know, you've got to be able to make everyone happy and not make anyone feel as though you've overwhelmed them or even underwhelmed. So it is, I actually remember when I was working at Adelaide, I did a private tasting for a lady. This lady she was an actress. She was the head teacher on Little House on the Prairie. Remember that show, Little House on the Prairie? You girls. But it was the school teacher, and at the end of the tasting she said, "You did a very good job for not being a teacher." And I felt great, because I was able to pitch it so that everyone could understand what was going on. But even if I go back even further, Justin Baldwin was a pioneer of the elevated experience. He was the first person to have a members lounge, and I was lucky enough to run the members lounge there for many years. And he realized right in the beginning that you have to be able to offer that elevated experience, that extra. So they had the members lounge there. At Adelaide, we had the Hilltop, we had the Vineyard too, we had the private room. And so I'm lucky to have been able to experience and host many of those. So as well as working in regular tasting rooms, regular tasting with Justin, regular tasting room. But yeah, no, elevated experiences, giving that special extra time is definitely something that's been a more recent thing, but is definitely going to flow forward into coming back into the marketplace.
Yeah. I love that point, Glenn. And one of the things, when I think elevated experience, oftentimes it's setting, right? It's the cave, it's the deck, it's the something really fancy. But I think when you think about what experience really means, it's the connection piece. And like, we have tons of friends in Paso who their club members and guests love them, super loyal, and they sell wine and make wine in an industrial park. So it's not necessarily always about the setting, but it's about that human piece. And one of the things when I think of sort of the more architecty, really beautiful wineries and facilities around, all of them in Paso have done an incredible job of sort of elevating the conversation to being about the landscape and the place as well. So it's just another piece that makes it interesting and sort of brings connection for the people who get to visit us, not only with us personally, but also with the place in Paso. I feel like that was medium incoherent, but I hope you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
like, no, I don't get it at all.
People can leave where you work with memories that they will never forget. And to some of it's natural to give that experience, just because that's just who we are. That's how we're made. Like Leann was saying, you're nothing about wine when she started there. Well, wine you can learn. You can read books. You can talk to people. You can study. You can do. There's all the different exams, all the certifications. You can do all of those. But if you can't talk to somebody, if you can't make a connection, if you can't make somebody, what it really is about, it's about selling yourself. And this was something that my father and my grandfather taught me. My grandfather taught my dad. My dad and my grandfather were pioneers of business in the city I'm from, back in Northern England. And they were incredibly successful salesmen and businessmen. I'm the one that hopped across to a continent and drink a lot of wine. and I have many sayings and stories from them, but one of the main ones is, if you're not looking after your customer, someone else is. But when you get that customer, give them a lifelong experience. Make them feel that when they leave and go back to their homes, whether it's elsewhere in California or elsewhere in the US, make them hungry to come back and visit again. Make them want to come back and re-experience the wonderful experience and the wine that they've had. It's important to do that.
Cheers to hey, man, that's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, keyword connections, right? Like, I think that's the best thing is I love meeting people, and I've gone to Colorado to go see people I'd met in the tasting room. I love just, they're coming to our family, our team, and I really want them to get a sense of that. And I feel like it's communicated really well, especially after being appointment only. And what Maggie said, it is the silver lining, in all of this. When we do come back, it's going to be, appointment only. And it's going to be that one-on-one that has only benefited us since we've switched. We switched mainly because we were in the old tasting room and it was tiny. And people would walk away not even knowing that Stefan came from France. It was just, I was only pouring. It was more of a drink, and, try to get in as many wineries as possible. So to be able to, shake their hand or not now, but meet them and just, get to know them. They get to know you, and then you get to share, the story and why we do it. And, it's such a labor intensive industry, and I want them to know why, it's because we love it, and I want them to love it, and I want them to walk away just kind of knowing a little bit more than when they walked in. And I love that compliment when they feel like they learned something. It's going to be wonderful for us.
Let's really quick share, by the way, because I think we have a question about it, what you're drinking. So Leann, you were talking last. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking the 20th anniversary bottle of Optimus. So this is a baby. Stefan's not here, so he can't judge me for opening it. We probably bottled it 4 weeks ago.
Wait, what vintage?
18.
Oh, you literally just said that. Got it.
It's okay, Maggie. I got you. But I just love the label. I opened it yesterday afternoon. I knew it needed a lot of time. So I know there's a lot of members watching. Don't open yours. Just call me. I'll let you know. Maybe save that. Stefan would say you can drink the rosé, but you do not drink the red. So it's beautiful. But I just kind of wanted to promote that it is the 20th anniversary, and that's huge for us. And it's tight.
Tight, but
Like,
good. Right on.
meaning it's good,
But always
or it's tight,
pleasurable.
like it needs some time.
But she's got some aggressive youthful tannins going on, but
Yeah.
very balanced and very beautiful.
Right on. Maggie.
I am drinking, I was telling my fellow panelists earlier, I have 2 bottles of wine, which it's 3, it's fine. It's 3:30. So what I opened is our Downslope, which this is our screw cap red. And we make a red, a white, and a pink that are all under screw cap because sometimes you just need it now, And Downslope is a wine we've been doing for a few years. If you ever see Alta Colina on a restaurant wine list, it's often Downslope. It is named after where on the vineyard these grapes grow. Alta Colina, it's Spanish for high hill. You could sort of get a sense in that picture that I showed you of how steep these hillsides are. Everything growing on the bottoms of the hills, they're less stressed because there's more topsoil down there. These vines crop heavier. So we see more like 2 bottles of wine per vine, whereas everything else on the vineyard is more like 1. So eventually, we used to harvest that and sell it as bulk wine. And then we said, this is very silly because this is very delicious. And we decided to put a little more thought into when we harvested those, how we made it, and put together a wine that's really to drink right now. So it's also a 2018, it's a baby, Downslope Red. The one that I may or may not be opening is a 2011 Toasted Slope Syrah because I'm a nerd.
11.
I think that's one of my favorite vintages. You should open it.
Our 11s are killer.
I love them.
Wine writers, I thought they were very lazy in writing about the 11 vintage because it was cold. It was a challenging vintage. but anyone on this call has killer vineyards and people who know what they're doing. So the 11s are gorgeous.
Absolutely. I think 11s, just from my little place and where I deal with all of the journalists, is like, yeah, they were writing off 11 because in other areas in California, it was so cold that things didn't get ripe and stuff was a little too green and whatever. This is Paso. We were fine. It was cooler. And so some of those varietals that do enjoy a little bit of a cooler environment definitely had different expressions in 11. And that is probably the case with that one. And so 11.
I love it. They're gorgeous. You know, but they had the benefit of a cool year was that crazy long growing season.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we didn't have the benefit of extra hang time. Meanwhile, we weren't that nervous in Paso about getting it ripe. So, you know, 11, it's a total outlier. Like there's no vintage like it, but they're super cool. So.
And I don't know about you guys, but our 11 production was micro, you know, comparatively speaking. So
like 15.
For those who really did listen to reviews and scores, they probably didn't pick up on this vintage and they probably missed out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was, definitely fewer yields. That April 10, 11, 12 weird inversion of frost that it zapped stuff that's normally safe. And some of those things that grew on, let's just say, southerly facing slopes or southerly facing slopes. Grenache, for instance, a lot less Grenache that year for a lot of people, especially because they want to keep it up high, get it nice and warm and ripe and all of that, where versus some of the things that lied lower in some vineyards, they were safe that time around. So it was a weird year, and for sure, I think things got a little overlooked. But Glenn, what are you drinking? Because it looks like you have the same thing I have.
Yeah. And funny enough, just to back up quickly to 2011. In 2011, I worked hard with Ven 2 with Scott.
I love
That's right.
And they have the estate Petit Syrah and Syrah, which was lovely. The Grenache didn't do so well, and so they actually eventually pulled the Grenache out. But the Mourvedre, I remember getting to work in the morning. It was 5 a.m. and it was frosty. And we got these almost like jet-propelled propane heaters, and we put them at the bottom of the vineyard to push warm air up on the Mourvedre because the Mourvedre was still hanging.
Wow.
What size were these? What I'm picturing is not very big.
Not that wide. And I don't know.
They're small.
Yeah, it was like, you could have strapped it on your back and, jet propelled up in the air, but it was pushing this hot propane air just to push warm air up the vineyard before we picked it. But that was Mourvedre, and Mourvedre came in quite late that year, but the estate Mourvedre.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cold year, tough year.
Yeah.
I'm drinking My Favorite Neighbor, 2017. Quite apt to have Leann there because this is all about next door. Oh, there it's twins.
Yeah, who's the favorite neighbor? Yeah.
Leann.
Leann.
Right. Yeah, wait, no, Glenn, can you talk to me about like Booker, My Favorite Neighbor, what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you'd like to, yeah, happily. So Booker, Eric and so I'm sitting on the deck of the house that Eric and Lisa first lived in when they moved over to this side in 2001, and they lived here with their 3 kids, and we're at the very back of the ranch. And so he planted the vineyard in 2001. He made some wines in 2005, but in 2006 was, I believe, the first My Favorite Neighbor. So when Eric and Lisa first moved here, their plan was simply just to grow fruit. Eric had become really good friends with Stefan, with Justin Smith at Saxham, Chris Cherry, Matt Treverson, and the plan was simply to grow fruit for his friends. But then he got the bug and started to make wine. So in 05 was the first vintage, a few wines. But when he finally got to make wine, because Stefan was living next door, he would call up Stefan and say, hey, and Stefan, we know the story of coming from France, and he wanted to grow Cabernet and Syrah together and blend them. And so, Eric had been in the music business as an incredibly successful promoter for festivals and concerts. And whilst he loved wine, didn't know about growing and making wine, and Stefan was his initial first mentor, and then Justin Smith as well. So the story goes that he would call Stefan on the phone and say, "Hey, Stefan, it's your favorite neighbor, Eric. I've got a question for you," like 20 or 30 times a day. And then sometimes, Stefan would answer. Sometimes he would call him back and say, "Oh, Eric, it's your favorite neighbor." There was a joke that he couldn't remember Eric's name, and he would call him his favorite neighbor. So when Eric decided to make a wine, which was going to be the blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Syrah, he called it My Favorite Neighbor. So many of you will remember the label from 06 through 15 was that little pencil caricature of Stefan and Eric sort of tasting.
I love that label.
Yeah, and in 16, he wanted to honor and pay homage to our workers in the vineyard. So Michaela, Angelica, Aurelio, Maurizio, and so the 16th vintage of MFN had the photographs. I've got a tractor coming in behind me, so apologies if there's a bit of background, but I am in the vineyard and we are working in the vineyard. And so Greg Gorman, who the famous Hollywood photographer, would come and take photographs of all of the staff. So in 17, we decided to go with one label, and so we have the cans on the string. Sorry.
The dulcet tone of a crawler. That's my favorite thing.
It's already a fake background now. He has fake sound effects.
Yeah, the fake sound, the fake background, everything. Even with a fake accent.
Glenn, you're so pretty.
With my Oregon distribution team, and I got Eric to come and say hello. And he goes, "All right, you guys," I can't do his accent. He said, "Don't believe his fake Irish accent. He's really from New Jersey."
This is amazing.
So yeah, My Favorite Neighbor 2017, Cabernet Sauvignon, dominant. It has Cabernet on the label now. It never had Cabernet on the label. It was always just a red blend, but we're distributing this wine now. And so My Favorite Neighbor, in your original question, Maggie, My Favorite Neighbor has always been part of the portfolio. We have the pink, we have the white, we have the Ripper, Oublier, Vertigo, Tempranillo, the Frattura, and My Favorite Neighbor. But we just have decided to, with the 16 vintage, increase the production of this by sourcing the fruit. We don't grow the Cabernet here. We have the limestone soils. Limestone shale soils give us that low pH. Eric wants a slightly higher pH, but in reality, it's only from the difference between 3.6 to 3.7, 2.75. But the mouthfeel, the exponential mouthfeel of that higher pH, even though it's just 0.1 up, is so much different on the palate. It's a much softer, richer, a real sexier mouthfeel by growing the Cabernet on the brown clay soils, which we source mostly from Denner, next door to Denner, which is Lopi, which was Zimmerman and Parish, and a couple of vineyards. So it's all West Side fruit. It's all Willow Creek District, Adelaide District, but he just wants that richer, softer, layered mouthfeel for the Cabernet. But we're just increasing production of My Favorite Neighbor, but not the Booker wines, of course, because the Booker wines are all.
And I have a question, and this is a squirrel moment. Is sexy a term that you had to start saying after you started with Eric? Because this is an adjective that Stefan uses on the regular. Is this a neighbor thing, or did you actually use that adjective before you started with them?
In describing wine.
I just have to know.
Yeah.
Like in the cave, if I don't use the sexy button or the sexy button, I get in trouble because
Oh, no, there's literally a light switch labeled sexy, right? Isn't that like there's literally a button that says the word sexy on it and it changes the light?
I think so.
No, I've a long time used the word sexy. I stole it from Hugh Grant from that what's that movie? What's the movie Hugh Grant's in where he plays the Prime Minister? And
Love Actually. I have a lot to say about that movie. I know this is not the time, but we'll talk about it later.
okay, yeah.
Is that going to go on your pairing recommendation on PasoWine.com?
It's not what I'm going to recommend, no. But it's not. Also, I watch it at least once a year. It's fine. That's an aside.
You have to. It's a Christmas. It's a must movie.
I mean, sadly, you're right.
No.
For those of you who have met Bob, sexy, not one of the vocabulary words that we use to describe our wine.
Bob! Yay, Bob!
Not on his radar. It would like never. This is gonna get a little bit PG-13 for a second. We worked with a winemaker on the growing side for a long time who used to describe our Marsan as slutty. And I was like, okay, what does this mean? And it also felt questionable because like we named the Marsan, the bottle we wine that we name, or that's Marsan on the label is called Claudia Cubet, who's my grandmother. And I was like, Jeff, too much. Like, reel it in. Sexy feels fine. Maybe don't explore beyond that, you know?
It's okay. It's like when Stefan refers to the Coda Code as his prostitute, and when I share that story after I feel out my group, if they can handle that, then they come back in and they're like, so I want to buy a case of the hooker.
Like,
no. Only
It works
Stefan
for
can
Stefan
say it.
because of the
Sometimes with the
accent.
accent.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stefan's greatest advice to me when it came to wine sales.
My mic's a bit wonky. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say it again, Glenn.
The Mark frequently does the jump dance scene reenactment every holiday season. You're welcome. And the jump scene is obviously the Hugh Grant scene where he thinks he's in number 10 on his own and he's dancing around. And obviously my sexy thing comes from when he looks up at Margaret Thatcher, because obviously he has a crush on the tea girl, and he says, did this happen to you? Of course it did, you sexy minx. You know.
That's a very good line. That is a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You Brits can get away with that too.
Yes, you can.
I have gotten away with a great deal verbally. Yeah. Hey, we all have to have our edge.
We do. No, Stefan, the probably the greatest advice he ever gave me when it came to selling wine is, you must seduce. And I was like, okay, I'm not a French man. I don't think it's gonna work, but thank you.
I probably sell more wine when I do his accent than when I don't.
I would buy more.
Yeah.
Is that part of the heightened guest experience? Is you
Yeah, but then
Stefan?
you have people who are like, no, say it in Stefan's voice. And you're like, no.
No. Does that happen?
Yes.
Stop.
Yeah. The spearhead ladies love it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You have to have a cigar in hand, or
But no, you take the cigarette, you take the filter, and at least I know when he's in the cave because you just smell that tobacco.
nice. Oh my gosh, you guys are hilarious. I need to note again is that oftentimes when I put these lineups together, everyone knows each other already. And so, yeah, there's a few, inside jokes or whatever, but also, I mean, we are a tight knit community. And I think that's what makes it so approachable for people to come and visit us is that I'd like to say these people on the screen are pretty down to earth and like to have fun with you when you come to Paso to taste wines and experience our wine region. And I think that's what really sets us apart. So when you're getting these, great experiences, you're not just getting great wine, you're getting some really fun personality. And so thanks everyone for showing your personality today.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Glenn.
No, I was saying thank you. It's a real pleasure to be invited. Thank you.
I know, me too.
Token Brit.
Yeah, seriously.
One of them. Didn't you have Neil on here? Wasn't Neil on here?
I think so. Both of the Neils.
Neils were on here, yeah. Yeah. The Neils were on.
He's in the south, so I'm representing the north. North of the wall.
You're starting to sound like Game of Thrones. I don't even know. From the north. Yeah. No, but one of
all of a sudden he's Scottish. I don't know.
Who knows? Like, we're Americans. We don't know geography. I don't know.
Well, I'm actually from the border. So the city I'm from is literally 5 miles from the border. So after a few whiskeys, my accent does change a bit.
I would like to hear that, Glenn.
In other words, incomprehensible.
Right.
No, but I do think it's true in Paso. I've absolutely had great experiences with guests. And one of the things that made it great is maybe Alta Colina wasn't actually the style of wine they were looking for, but we had a great personal connection. And I was able to send them somewhere else in Paso Robles where they're going to find wines that they like in the style that they like, at the price that they want, the type of experience, one of the really cool things sort of working with guests and folks who don't hang out in Paso all the time is that all of us want you to come and leave, of course, loving Alta, Colina, Booker, Laventure, but loving Paso first and wanting to come back and wanting to tell your friends to come back with you. Like, we want you to come and connect with the place that we love so much. And it's a luxury for me to get to say, oh yeah, go visit Leann, go visit Glenn. I know that they'll have a good time. And I think it's unique to Paso. I think it's special.
And we have so much diversity. You can do that, you know, and it's so much fun to be like, oh, so you just don't prefer this. Like, I got you. There's 70 other places that you can go. And I actually was catching up with a friend from high school. I'm from Paso. And so he was like, so this whole wine thing, he was like, is it just like super competitive? And I was like, no. You know, that's kind of one of the things that I'm so proud of being in the Paso wine industry is that we're so supportive, you know, and it's also allowed us to blossom and grow in a very positive way. But it was fun just to be able to talk to somebody who moved to Boston after we graduated high school and doesn't really know the ins and outs of the community that we built, you know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest attractions for Paso, because I came to Paso on a business trip 12 years ago. I owned a wine shop in the UK for 10 years, and I came here actually to visit Paul Sowerby, who he's the national sales manager at Alta, because he walked into my wine shop in Northern England, where he's from. We're actually from the same town. His mum and dad and brother still live there, and I came to visit him. And, you know, first of all, I was just blown away. And so this was March 2008. I was blown away how friendly people were. You'd walk down the street in downtown and people would say hello that you'd never meet. Trust me, that doesn't happen in the city that I'm from. I mean, I come from it's a rough industrial city with a lot of unemployment. But people were friendly. But the second thing I noticed that even back then, Paso Robles has this ability to fit every pocket and every palate, which means that whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever you like, there's something here for you. And it's a friendly town, everyone's friendly. And so whether they come and visit any of our wineries or not, they may get recommended. But and even going back further in our conversation today, talking about that elevated experience and pitching it to the right people, of course, you're going to get the people who are going to want to know the soils and the pH and the alcohol and all that, but then you're going to get the ones who come in and they just want to have a drink because that's what they want. Everyone's coming for different reasons, so we are able in Paso to be friendly and also to be able to fit every palate and every pocket.
Really nicely put, Glenn. Every palate, every pocket.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. You know, I think that what also happens so much in Paso is a lot of the discovery of other wineries for some people, because they might see, you know, this label somewhere on a store shelf and, oh, it's from Paso or whatever. And no, you know, I want to go there and I want to go to this winery. And so they'll go to Booker. But the big discovery happens in that Booker, somebody there ends up recommending, say, Laventure or Alta Colina. And so the network that we have created here and the appreciation of each other's wines and each other's basically hospitality is what really helps other people discover new brands, new wines, new wineries to go visit. And I think that's one of the true key special things that really exists for our region, is this whole rising tide floats all boats mentality that we have here. That as we continue, as we've already seen, and as we continue these Zoom Hangouts, we'll continue to experience more and more of that in that personality of Paso. So thank you, by the way, everyone. Thanks so much for being on today. I really appreciate you taking the time, having a drink. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Full day, right? Cheers.
Cheers.
That was a delight. Thank you, Chris.
Maggie, you had one thing left, I think.
Oh, yes.
I can't believe I'm reminding you, because I
did.
don't
It
want
crossed
to.
my mind and I was like, I'll let it go.
No,
I need to move this.
I'll let him
no, I'm
break
not
it.
going to let it go.
So, folks,
Folks.
we
Y'all.
I'm sorry, I don't know. At Alta Colina, because, days are weird, things are weird right now, we decided that every day we should have a little dance moment, just like have a dance, move the bod. So we figured we would do one together today on Zoom.
Oh, man.
Chris,
Move
I'll
the
start
bod.
it. Move the bod.
I'm already
Chris,
red.
Feel free to just off the meeting at any point.
I might.
But you can't.
I have
This is
control.
a song. My coworker Melissa introduced me to it. I enjoy it very much. Let me know if you can hear it. Can you hear it? Yeah? Sound? Yeah.
Hey, feeling good. Like I
I've
said,
never heard this.
been in purple walk around the neighborhood. Feeling black.
Leann,
Yeah.
Gotta dance! You guys.
You know what? So love it, but we actually just got a question.
Oh.
Leann, Pat says hi, by the way.
Hi, Pat. I miss you guys.
Fans want one recommendation from them each on their fave wineries. Ooh.
Ooh, I like this
Each
question.
other?
First of all, fave is a very strong word.
Yeah, can we not say fave?
Yeah, you can say not say fave. You can say you appreciate.
Oh, heck yeah.
PR guy.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many.
I'm going to lead the train just because this is a shout out to Ryan and Nicole Peace. I already drank the 2 bottles of Uni I bought on Monday. I'm going to need a case, and I know you only have 25 more. But Paso Robles, I'm definitely a Mourvèdre enthusiast. And I think that they do a great job of Alta Colina fruit. It's beautiful. But they source from different vineyards. And one thing that I found it really difficult when I started was trying to figure out what each individual varietal brought to the table. We do a lot of blends, and it makes it really hard to kind of see what that variety kind of embodies. And so I think it's nice that they can do, different vineyards and just focus on Mourvèdre, especially because in my tasting room, or our tasting, it's not mine, but in the tasting room here, it's a very common question. They know Grenache, they know Syrah, but they always ask me, what is this M word? What is that? And I think I love sending them to Paso Robles because of that. But they're 3 whites. Very small production on all of these, the Picpoul, the Claret Blanche, and the Uni. The Uni Blanc is probably one of my favorite whites, just for any occasion, year round. It's absolutely tremendous. So I'm gonna say that, lock it in. That's my answer.
I love that, Rick. That wine is legit.
That's good.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good. Maggie.
Okay, so it got warm in the last week. So one that came to mind for me is Lone Madrone up Adelaide Road here from us. Neil is the winemaker at Talbot's Creek. He's the winemaker owner at Lone Madrone, and he makes badass wines. They're super interesting. And one of my favorite things about Lone Madrone is at Alta Colina, we're all about estate, we're all about vineyard, but that doesn't mean that you can't make a killer bottle of wine from fruit that you buy. And like my favorite neighbor speaks to this, Optimus back in the day speaks to this. If you're getting good fruit, the wine should be good unless you screw it up. And Neil doesn't own a single stick. He doesn't own a single vine. So he's sourcing from really cool vineyards all over Paso, and he does whatever he wants, which is always interesting. Some of it is a bit kooky, which I love. And he also makes a mean dry cider under his cider label, which is called Bristol's. And as the temperature is warm, I find myself spending a lot of time with Lone Madrone and Bristol's. Love it.
Nice. Glenn.
There's a couple of hard ones to follow. Again, I'm in mode to drink this, so it has to be either the weather or the time of day or the food that I'm eating or not. But I've long been a huge advocate of Thatcher. Sherman and Michelle Thatcher on Adelaide Road. What I really love about them is they're really, for a while they've been developing into some lesser known varieties and really going for super low alcohol. They do a Sin So. Actually, I'm lucky enough to have helped them write their tasting notes for all of their
Well played,
wine.
sir. Well
last
played.
few years. If you read them, you may have noticed a few of my European-y, and Eric, he jokes and teases me a little bit because I throw in some of those European words and phrases that no one over here understands. But their Cinsault, I think their 15th vintage was only 10.5%, as was their Cinsault Rosé. So their Cinsault is beautiful. They do a Valdegui. They do some beautiful blends, Cabernets, Zinfandel. Their whites, they do 2 Chenin Blancs. One Chenin Blanc comes from a 50-year-old head-trained vineyard way out in Creston. I just love what they're doing. They planted a field blend with some really unusual old varieties like the Mission Grape, Trousseau. I love their the experimentation that they're going through, and Daniel definitely is involved with that. He's a cool guy. They're just doing some really great stuff using amphora, using concrete. And I think a lot of people are also experimenting and trying to drive those alcohols down and make wines a bit drier. But for me, it would be Thatcher. Definitely.
And Chris, isn't that what you're going to focus on in the next Zoom Hangout, is different vessels?
No, that's two. Thank you for mentioning that. No, that's 2 hangouts from now, actually. The next Zoom Hangout. Ooh, look at you transition, Leann.
Flawless work, Leann.
Oh, jeez.
I just blew it saying anything about it, too. Damn it. Now, the next Zoom Hangout is going to be on Friday, the 8th, and we're going to be talking to Molly Scott. She is the Vineyard manager, I guess you could say, kind of relations, Vineyard
Grower relations.
Grower relations, thank you, with Justin. Then we'll be talking to Amanda Wistrom-Higgins from Santa Margarita Ranch, Ancient Peaks, and Guillaume Fabre from Clos Salin. We're talking about what's happening in the vineyard. So we've got, medium-sized vineyard, small-sized vineyard, big-sized vineyard. So looking at it from all facets of what's happening right now in the AVA and seeing what's afoot, what are we doing right now, and what's happening in the vineyard. So thank you, Leann, for pop that in there. I appreciate that. All of these Zoom Hangouts are available on pasowine.com, of course, so you'll be able to see this one as well as past ones there as well, so you can catch up on what we've been talking about, because I know sometimes we do reference the other ones. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
It's been fun. And
Sorry, Chris, I had to. This is how you know everyone. He's wrapping us up.
Shut up.
Behind the scenes.
All right, man. We are done. Thank you for joining us. Catch us next time. Go to pasowine.com.
Glenn, Leann, Chris.
At Paso Wine. Follow us on Facebook at Paso Robles Wine. You'll know when the next Facebook Hangout is. Glenn, thank you very much. Maggie, thank you very much. Leann, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Right on. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Love
Glenn,
you.
feel free to walk over.
I'm jealous.